This is the key to the worksheet number 1 on rational expressions. In number 1, you want to find any values of the variable that makes the expression undefined. So remember, when you have a rational expression, the expression is undefined when the denominator is 0. So to find out what values of the variable x will make the rational expression undefined, you take the denominator and you set it equal to 0 and you solve for the variable x. You don't worry about the numerator. It doesn't matter what the numerator is. It depends on the denominator. So the denominator cannot be 0. So all you do in number 1 is take the denominator, which is x squared plus 5x plus 6, and set it equal to 0, and then you just need to solve this quadratic equation. So to solve this quadratic equation, we're going to use factoring. And so when I factor this, I'm going to x plus 3 times x plus 2. And so at this point, I'm going to use a zero factor property. So I'm going to set each of these factors equal to 0. So I get x plus 3 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. And then notice I have two linear equations. So I get x to be negative 3, x to be negative 2. Okay, so what I found here is that when x is negative 3, my denominator is 0. And you can check it. Watch. Negative is what we have. We have negative 3 squared plus 5 times negative 3 plus 6. That's the denominator, right? Okay, so if I look at this, a negative 3 squared is 9, right? And then 5 times a negative 3 is a negative 15. So I have 9 plus a negative 15. And then plus, and then that's what, 6? And look, when I add those up, I get 0. And then I can do the same thing with the other value for x, which is negative 2. And so when x is negative 2, and I substitute that into the denominator, again, it doesn't matter what the numerator is. It's the denominator. So when the denominator is 0, it's undefined. So when I substitute negative 2 into the denominator, into that expression that's in the denominator, notice what I get. Negative 2 squared is 4. Okay, negative 2 times 5 is a negative 10. So 4 plus a negative 10 is a negative 6. And a negative 6 plus 6 equals 0. Okay, so in this case, there are two values of x for which this rational expression is undefined. And that's when x is negative 3, comma, negative 2. Okay. All right, number 2, you're asked this. You want to evaluate the rational expression when x is 5. Now, what you have to do is, wherever you see the variable x, you need to substitute 5. So in number 2, we have this for number 2. We have 8 divided by, and again, wherever I see the variable x, I substitute 5. So I get 8 divided by 5 squared plus 4 times 5 minus 5. And so dealing with the denominator, simplifying the denominator, I get 8 divided by 5 squared is 25. 4 times 5 is 20, and then minus 5. So using the order of operations, 25 plus 20 gives me 45, and then 45 minus 5 gives me 40. And so when I reduce this now, I'm going to get 1 divided by 5. Okay, they're both divisible by 8. Okay, so that was number 2. So number 2, the answer is 1/5. Okay, number 3, I'm going to go ahead and write out number 3. So 3a is this. So here's 3a. So we have 10xy cubed divided by 4x squared y squared. And notice that the direction says simplify each rational expression. All right, so in number 1, these are all monomials. See, those are all monomials, right? So compare that with something like letter C. So in letter C, what you have to do here, those are not monomial factors. Those are polynomials with more than one term. So in this case, like letter C, you would need to factor first. But these are already in monomial factors. So what we're going to do here is just reduce what we can. So the first factor I see is 10. Will 10 reduce with any of these factors that's in the denominator? And the answer is yes, the 4. So 10 and 4 are both divisible by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Okay? Now let's look at the x. I have one factor of x in the numerator. I have 2 in the denominator. It's kind of like saying this, x divided by x times x. And so when I reduce these factors, the one factor here divides out, so you really get 1 over x, right? So what that means, see this one right here? So what that means is that when I reduce this, and you got to show this, when I reduce this factor of x becomes a 1, hence that's what you see here. And this 2 factors of x become just 1 factor of x, and that's what you see here. Okay? And then we do the same thing with the y's. I have 3 factors in the numerator. I have 2 factors in the denominator. So all of these will divide with 2 of these. So this becomes a 1, and then there's only 1 factor y left. And so therefore, see, now it can get pretty messy. You see that? So therefore, what I have left is 5 times 1 times y, which is 5y, divided by 2 times x times 1, which is 2x. And so that's your answer. So for 3a, the answer is 5y divided by 2x. Okay, letter B. Now, we did talk about the idea of opposites. Okay? So remember, x minus 6 and 6 minus x are opposites. Those are opposites. Okay? What I've noticed that some students do, they get a little confused here. So what some students do is they say this. They say, all right, I'm going to cancel these 1s out. I'm going to cancel these 6s out. You cannot do that. That is wrong. Because when you factor, you have to divide out factors. You have to divide out factors. X is not a factor in the numerator. X is attached with the 6. You're subtracting 6 from x, so that's 1 factor by itself. And that is 1 factor by itself, so you cannot do that. It's kind of like if you say this, 2 minus 6 divided by 2, and then all of a sudden you do this. You know that's not true. That is definitely not true, because look, if you do this, 2 minus 6 is a negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2 is a negative 2. That's what that is. That's not what this is. I don't know what you're putting here, but if what I'm thinking you're saying 1 minus 6 is negative 5, and negative 5 divided by 1 is negative 5, and that's definitely not 2. So you have to be careful. You have to be careful. What you had to do here was notice that these are opposites. These are opposites. And so when we talked about opposites, in that lesson on opposites, we noticed that what we can do from one of these is factor out a negative 1. Okay, so what I have is this. I can factor out a negative 1 from the denominator. And so when I factor out a negative 1 from 6 minus x, I get negative 1 times x minus 6. Because look, if I distribute, I get this back. Negative 1 times a negative 6 is a positive 6. Negative 1 times x is a negative x. And now I can reduce. And so then I get 1 divided by negative 1. 1 divided by negative 1, which is negative 1. And that's the answer. So the answer in letter B is negative 1. Those are opposites. These are opposites. So you got to remember the idea of opposites. Okay, letter C. So in letter C, we have this. We have 2x plus 8 divided by x squared plus 8x plus 16. All right, so now we have a polynomial with more than one term. So what you have to do here in order to simplify is to factor first, because you can only reduce factors. 2x plus 8 is a factor in the numerator. 2 is not a factor, x is not a factor of the numerator. Okay, but I can factor the numerator further, and I can factor the denominator further. So if you look at the numerator, I can factor out a 2. And so I get 2 times x plus 4, that's 4. And so notice the numerator has 2 factors. The factors are 2 and x plus 4. In the denominator, when I factor the denominator into 2 binomials, I get x plus 4 times x plus 4. And so if I follow this out, you'll notice you'll get this back. And now I can reduce. And it's very important that when you reduce, I see what it is that you're reducing. So you got to say this. You got to say x plus 4 divided by itself is 1. X plus 4 divided by itself is 1. You must show that. And so therefore I get 2 times 1 is 2. And then 1 times x plus 4 is x plus 4. And that's the answer. So 2 divided by x plus 4. Okay? All right, now let's look at letter D. So in letter D, we have this. We have 4t minus 12 divided by t squared minus 9. So again, in order to simplify this rational expression, the first thing you have to do is factor. You can only reduce factors. You must be looking at your factors. So if I look at the numerator, this polynomial, I know I can factor out a 4. So let's go ahead and do that. And so I get 4 times t minus 3. The denominator is the difference of two squares. So I get t minus 3 times t plus 3. And now you must show the factors that are being reduced. I have a 4 in the numerator. I do not have a 4 in the denominator occurring as a factor. I have a t minus 3 in the numerator. I can reduce that with one of the factors in the denominator. And so notice that's all I can reduce. And so I get 4 times 1 is 4. And then 1 times t plus 3 is t plus 3. So the answer is 4 divided by t plus 3. So 4 divided by t plus 3. Okay? All right, so that was letter D. Okay, let's look at letter E now. So in letter E, we have this. So this is E. So we have 5x minus 25 divided by 25 minus x squared. Okay, so again, I have to factor. Now in the numerator, I can factor out a 5. So I get 5 times x minus 5. Now many students get confused with this. They want to say this. They want to say that they first of all know that this is a difference of two squares, but they factor it incorrectly. Some students do this. They say, well, that's x minus 5 times x plus 5. No, it's not. That is not this. Because if you FOIL this, this becomes x times x is x squared. The outer and the inner add up to be 0. And then negative 5 times 5 is a negative 25. That's not what this is. That's 25 minus x squared. This is x squared minus 25. Those are opposites, which you just wrote. All right, so you got to be careful. So to factor this correctly, you got to say 5 minus x times 5 plus x. That's how you factor that. Okay? Because 5 times 5 is 25. Negative 5 times 5 is negative 25. That's not what that is. That's a positive 25. Okay, now we reduce. What you have to notice over here is that x minus 5 and 5 minus x are opposites. Okay? So that means, remember when we talked about this before, that means that when I reduce this, one factor is a positive 1 and one factor is a negative 1. And so therefore we get 5 times negative 1 is a negative 5. 1 times 5 plus x is the same thing as saying x plus 5. So there's your answer. Okay, so I get in letter E, I get negative 5 divided by x plus 5. So negative 5 divided by x plus 5. Okay, letter F, we have x squared minus 6x plus 9 divided by 2x minus 6. So I can factor the numerator and denominator. So in the numerator, I can factor it as two binomials. And so I get x minus 3 times itself, right? And then the denominator looks like I can factor out a 2. So I get 2 times x minus 3. And then I reduce. The x minus 3's divide out. And then that's about all I can do. So I get 1 times x minus 3 is x minus 3. 2 times 1 is 2. And so there's your answer. So letter F, the answer is x minus 3 divided by 2. Okay, G, we have x squared minus 12x plus 32 divided by, and then the denominator is x squared plus 4x minus 32. So again, I want to simplify this rational expression. So to simplify, I need to factor first so I can reduce the factors. And so when I factor this, let's see what we get. We get, let's see, x for 32. Let's try 8 and 4. Last sign's positive. That means these signs in here are the same, and they're both negative. So 8 and 4. Okay. And then notice the outer's a negative 4x, the inner's a negative 8x. So I do get negative 12x. Over here, this one will be x plus 8, x minus 4. So 8 times negative 4 is a negative 32. The outer is a negative 4x, the inner is a positive 8x, and I get a positive 4x. And now we're going to reduce. See, the x minus 4 is divided out, and so the answer is x minus 8 divided by x plus 8. Okay? All right, so that is the answer to number 9. So x, let's see, x minus 8 divided by x plus 8. Okay, and then finally, letter H. Letter H, we get x cubed plus 10x squared divided by x squared plus 2x minus 80. Okay? All right, now we need to factor the numerator and also the denominator. And so when I factor the numerator, it looks like I can factor out an x squared, right? So I can factor out an x squared. And so I get x squared times x is x cubed, and then x squared times a positive 10 is a positive 10x squared. Divided by, and then here I can factor two binomials, and it looks like I'm going to get x plus 10, x minus 8. Because 10 times a negative 8 is a negative 80. The outer is a negative 8x, the inner is a positive 10x, and I get a positive 2x. And now let's reduce. So I have factors of x here, but I don't have any factors of x in the denominator. I have a factor of x plus 10 here, which I see one here, so I can divide those out. Remember, you got to do this. I have to see what it is that you're reducing. So if you want full credit, you have to show that. And so that's about all we can factor. All we can reduce. So I get x squared times 1 is x squared, divided by 1 times x minus 8 is x minus 8. And there's your answer. So the answer to letter H is x squared divided by x minus 8. All right, and so that was the key to rational expressions number 1.